any tips you can give because you're selling to these companies?
Yeah, so you can reach out to your state licensing board. All that information is public. So you can buy a list. I'm sure that, like in California, that you can buy them, and it'll have all the pertinent information. Usually have an email address and a phone number on there, so you can start calling. And I would recommend getting in early because there's going to be, a lot of activity.
Welcome to Insurance Shoptalk. This is the podcast where the world of commercial insurance gets a little closer to home. I'm your host, Eric Stein, and in every episode, we're taking a deep dive into the insurance industry, from the latest news and trends to in-depth interviews with insurtech experts, carriers, and agency newsmakers. We're covering it all. So sit back, tune in, and let's start the conversation. Well, hey, I want to thank Greg Cowan for coming on with Greenleaf HR in Bakersfield, California. Greg and I have been working together for a while, and I thought it'd be great to have Greg on to talk about the cannabis industry and the insurance requirements that are going on in terms of the most recent scenarios with banking and insurance about cannabis, being that's become more mainstream and even more states are coming through it. And I know a lot of agents are going to want to, maybe focus on this niche as it opens up in the new states that's coming out. I hear Georgia's going to get it where I'm located in a couple of years or less. And Greg, you'll know more about the other states coming online. We forgot to bring up that point. Let's make sure we do. But Greg, again, thank you. I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. Appreciate the invitation.
Absolutely. So why don't we get started with go into a little bit about your background, how you got into the cannabis side of insurance and HR services and such, and kind of get us up to speed there.
Yeah, I've been in the PEO industry for this is my 9th year. We started out back as WorkLogic HR in 2016, and we spun off Greenleaf HR in 2017 to be the cannabis-facing division of our company. And we had to do that because of the banking complexity, because you can't commingle cannabis deposits with traditional industry deposits. And so we kind of dove headfirst into the shallow end of the pool with the cannabis industry and learned about that business as we go. And it was pretty interesting. I really didn't go looking for the cannabis industry. It kind of found me. I found a niche with some entrepreneurs, and I got in good with some people at some national associations, and it just really took off from there. And I've been very successful over the last 7 years helping small, medium, and large size cannabis companies in all verticals throughout the years.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I know, your program encompasses more than just insurance. We're going to get to that quickly too, but it involves some assistance with HR and things like that. Can you kind of go into, some of the human resource challenges that these cannabis firms are facing, and maybe talk about a little bit about some of the types of cannabis industries that you're dealing with on the retail, wholesale side, things of that, growers. I know it's diverse.
It certainly is. The cannabis industry, many people often confuse that the cannabis industry is some kind of wild, wild west. And that's what we heard back in 2017. And after speaking with entrepreneurs and executives in the industry, after the first couple of months, I figured it out very quickly that there is no difference. Labor compliance applies to the cannabis industry just the same as it does to a liquor store or Macy's department store or any other agricultural firm. The biggest difference is what I mentioned earlier, is the banking complexity. And I think we've largely overcome that. Back in 2017, the access to services was, there wasn't a whole lot there.
Unlike they were using trucks to load personal vehicles to take their cash and go deposit it, in what I guess they couldn't even use a bank, right? It had to be
yeah, there's still some challenges on that end, but just getting access to a bank or was a challenge, because back then, it's still considered Schedule 1, but the Treasury Department had not loosened up the regulations that allowed community banks and credit unions who wanted to take on that risk to engage cannabis companies. And especially back then, those institutions that did, the fees were astronomical. And as the industry has evolved, that has softened as well. There's currently more than 800 banking institutions nationally that will engage cannabis clients. From the HR perspective, one of the greatest challenges that they experience is high turnover. The cannabis industry is notorious for extremely high turnover. And this creates challenges for employers to manage that employee life cycle from recruiting, onboarding, labor compliance, employee benefits, and then the offboarding. It's very expensive. And retail in general is notorious for turnover. But for whatever reason, the cannabis industry has a cycle there. And
is there a theme to that? Is it kind of like the restaurant business with that sort of worker and being younger, possibly? I'm just guessing. What do you think it is?
Yeah, I haven't really been able to put my thumb on it. I have my suspicions. Obviously that it's a younger crowd who's going to work in a cannabis industry. Whether especially on the front end with the dispensary. And maybe I really don't know. Maybe that they get involved in this industry and it's not what they thought it was going to be. That could be one thing. Or they're just not they're just not in love with that with that type of environment. I honestly I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. But no, yeah, I didn't realize the turnover was so high. Even more so than like a restaurant or other retail. So
yeah, I think maybe like from the dispensary level, if you think of like a convenience store, like an AM/PM or a Chevron station or something like that has high turnover, there's probably parallels there.
And what types of operations are you typically working with? I know probably all of them, but because there might be some new folks here listening that are agents that are CSRs that have not delved into the industry yet because it's not legal yet in their state. Like talk about the growers, the wholesale, retail. How does it work?
Yeah, so we provide services to all verticals in the cannabis industry and hemp industries, from cultivation, both indoor and outdoor, processing, manufacturing, distribution, retail, and then on the wholesale as well. I would say about 50% of my book of business each year is with startups. And there's a lot of challenges insuring startup companies, as you guys know.
Absolutely. And are they owners that they get a receiver, let's say on the dispensary side, get a license granted? Are these typically on the retail side? Are those people ever have had experience in retail or anything like that usually, or is it kind of hit or miss?
Well, I would say back in 2017 when we first started out, I got to meet and get to know a lot of inexperienced entrepreneurs. They were very eager to carve something out for themselves, but nevertheless didn't necessarily have that business acumen that would set them up for success. And unfortunately, many of those companies didn't make it. Today in 2024, I see a much better organized workforce than I did 7 years ago. I think the level of business acumen is 100 times better than what it was. You're starting to see more of the corporate money start coming into the business, and along with that comes better business experience, better executive experience that translates down to the workforce there.
That's great. So when they come to you, then you can help them navigate, I guess what the HR, the insurance requirements, payroll, safety and risk, anything else you can think of that you normally talk to someone about when they're just opening up?
Yes. So the startups are actually the most fun because they don't know what they don't know. So, you play the role as an educator and you walk them through the entire process with procuring a workers' comp policy, either on the PEO side or on our other ASO side. So we don't sell HR in a box. Rather, we take more of a consultative approach and listen to our prospective clients' organizational challenges. And then we customize solutions to match our clients' needs. A startup probably isn't going to need a PEO service. They generally don't have enough employees that are going to qualify for master medical. And then there's always the budgetary constraints that go along with that. So we've customized other solutions, that include payroll and HR. And then if they don't have workers' comp, then we can include that. And once they scale to a point where their budget will allow, we can procure an employee benefit package for them, or possibly transition them to a PEO platform if that's necessary.
Oh yeah, just to back up a minute, would you mind kind of talking about the difference into a PEO model versus the same administrative service organization model, ASO?
Yeah, so obviously PEO is an all-inclusive service solution with payroll, HR, workers' comp, and employee benefits in a co-employment relationship. That allows access for these employers to master policy workers' comp policies as well as master medical. And and the whole idea behind that is economies of scale purchasing power. On the flip side is our administrative services organization services, ASO for short. And that is basically starting with payroll and HR. And then we can customize outward from there. We also offer a standalone payroll service, for those companies who may already have all of their infrastructure in place and just need a payroll processing company, or perhaps one of those startup companies that just has a couple employees that might not be in the best place to take on additional services at that time. Good news is that we can grow with our clients, and we can basically by the flip of a switch, we can upgrade their service levels internally without any noticeable difference on their end, or have to do an implementation again. So it's really an easy service and an easy platform to grow with our clients.
Got it. That's perfect. And then when you move over to the workers' comp discussion, and by the way, the good news is you're agent friendly, and agents can come through us to get quotes for your services that you mentioned in different formats, and you pay commissions and such. It's similar to an insurance only type service for commissions, or insurance only policies for commission purposes. But in terms of getting into workers' comp, what are some of the classifications that you're seeing in the cannabis side? So it's, maybe there been anything new? I didn't even ask you this earlier. I mean, are there some newer classes that are coming out for this type of industry, or they just all put it to the agriculture piece?
Well, you have your usual suspects, cultivation 0035. There is one important distinction with cultivation. You need to understand if it's an indoor grow or an outdoor grow, okay? 4611 is manufacturing, 8017 is your dispensary, which is also the same class code for pharmacies. And then you have 8018 for your wholesale distributors as well. And then,
what's manufacturing? Is that the liquid or the edible type? Or what's manufacturing geared to?
Yeah, so like pre-rolls, you're manufacturing pre-rolls, edibles, and so forth.
And does CBD roll into that too?
It can.
Okay.
It can.
Got it. I know that's been very popular in the states that are not allowed to sell, traditional marijuana or cannabis, that they're leveraging toward that CBD piece. And then once the states start approving things, it goes from there. Oh, and I forgot to ask, what states are coming up soon for allowing cannabis that you know of?
Well, you mentioned Georgia. Florida's on the radar. South Carolina. New Jersey was just recently legalized for recreational purposes. New York was legalized, and each state's had their own drama with rolling out their program and getting their licensing processes squared away. Ohio was just recently approved for a recreational. So there's a lot going on in the cannabis industry, and I think once the DEA should they reschedule marijuana, then I think you'll see the rest of the states fall in line as well. There would be no reason not to.
I guess back to Ohio, that would go under the monopolistic program there for workers' comp. Okay.
Yep.
I think there's some captive programs too that are available there that we have access to, but yeah, majority of everyone seems to gravitate to that. But those other states you mentioned, those have are typically good states or markets for work comp just in general. So that should translate, to be a good opportunity for cannabis, I would think.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because, the Northeast corridor is challenging, not only from underwriting cannabis, but also from traditional industry. There's a lot of carriers who don't want to write policies in New York and New Jersey just because it's so litigious there. And we've experienced some dislocations over the last few years with carriers pulling out. And then, 6 months later, they get an epiphany and, and I'll start writing insurance in those states again. So it can be challenging.
And what carrier do you have available access to? And then in general, what carriers are writing the cannabis that are not related to what you're doing?
Yeah, so we have a master policy with Sons, and it's been very successful for us.
Got it. I think that's A-rated carrier nationwide, right?
Yep.
Perfect. And in terms back on the work comp piece in general, like claim wise, what are you seeing in the different areas of retail, wholesale, manufacturing? Is anything different that you normally would see in general, or like especially on the retail, I guess?
We've encountered some doozies over the years. The most common is repetitive motion in the cultivation arena there. You're spritzing or clipping, so lots of carpal tunnel. That's nothing new. You can get that in normal ag. Slip and falls on the retail side. On the delivery side, we've experienced some car accidents. And that's to be expected, just like any other distribution delivery. There's been a couple of cases of armed robbery in the dispensaries where there's been some claims. We had one recently. The owner of this company took an employee and said that they were going to make a delivery, and we believe that it was a black market deal, and they were robbed at gunpoint, pistol whipped, and sustained some significant injuries. So there is always that. And then we had one about a year ago that was incredible to me, that we had a cultivator who was using a scissor lift to trim the tops of the plants. And they had a person pushing it, and the guy on the top slipped, fell, and suffered a traumatic brain injury. And so, there's definitely some risk there. That's why our safety services are incredibly important, and for these companies to take seriously the safety aspect of our services.
Oh yeah, let's don't forget to get in that risk piece. One quick question: are you having any issues covering, let's say, the armed security guard that's in the either the delivery van, delivery vehicle, or inside a retail or other operation?
Yeah, so our carriers will not insure companies who have armed security guards on their payroll. They must outsource that to a third party.
Is that pretty common anyway, to outsource that?
Yeah, I would think so. You generally have to go to like a state fund type of insurer to get insurance through there. And we've had some who've, tried to skirt around that requirement and put them on 1099. They're not insured. It's kind of a black market type thing.
Gotcha. And go back into the risk management piece, because that's going to be pretty important based on the operation. Like go into segments there, like the retail, wholesale / manufacturing, cultivation pieces. What are you seeing there as far as services that you guys provide or needs to be provided by an agency if they're not using you?
Well, I think each vertical needs to engage, a payroll and HR outsourcing organization, because these are the folks who are going to keep those organizations compliant, with state mandated trainings, payroll compliance, labor compliance, and keep everybody in line there. I can't stress enough that how important that is. Most people understand that in a traditional industry. In the cannabis industry, I think people are coming around and understanding it, especially the more seasoned entrepreneurs. But on the newer side, the startups, I don't think that they recognize how important that is, especially the onboarding piece with having an employee handbook, written job descriptions, because it's not a matter of when you're going to get a claim filed against you. It's really when. It's not if, it's when.
Yeah, and then going back to risk management, like what you guys have a risk management service that will take care of, setting up the safety manual, the processes, helping them through, return to work, those sorts of things.
Yeah, so when clients onboard with our organization, we conduct a safety assessment. We'll take a look at any documents that they have on the startups. They're generally not going to have anything unless it was required by the state licensing board. They generally will need, a OSHA compliant safety manual and injury and illness prevention program, heat illness prevention program. Out here in California, you have to have a indoor heat illness prevention program that was just enacted. And then you also need to have workplace violence protocol in place as well. So we'll provide all that support to our clients.
And on that state licensing area, are they mandating any kind of risk management service? I mean, risk service for injury? I mean, are they more involved with the other side of it, with the compliance in terms of how they do their taxes and all the other items?
Yeah, I not that I've heard of, not on the safety side. I think they should, but they don't. I think that they just have the general expectation that you're going to get workers' comp insurance to protect
your legal business based on the state law of workers' comp that you're in. Right?
Yeah, there are states that do require some HR related information like an employee handbook, although that's rare. There are states that do require that. But again, it's generally not a requirement. I did encounter a client who told me that they had to have a written safety plan or a safety book for them. And they also had to have, what was it called? It had to do with armed robberies, an exit plan for that. That was one state. It's amazing to me that the rest of them don't do it. And if they do, I'm unaware of it. It's never been brought up.
PNC agents, have you run into Byberg, which is a Berkshire Hathaway company quoting workers' comp for either your prospects or clients? Well, great news. Insured Solutions, a national MGA, has an appointment that is set up to allow you to quote, bind, and service Byberg at your agency. And the coverage is in all states. It's A-rated. Startups are even accepted. There's $125,000 maximum premium. And some of the tough industries they write are construction, transportation, that includes towing and parcel delivery, manufacturing, security guards that are armed and unarmed, motor mediation, and many more. So go to our website at insuredsolutions.net, click the Get Appointed link. We'll get you logins for you and your team, and can set up a webinar for training if you'd like. Also, feel free to email info@insuredsolutions.net, and I can handle the submission myself, or call 770-402-5343. Be glad to speak to you and give you more detail. Thanks. Gotcha. In terms of, I guess that going back to that retention concept is, I guess, offering the benefits such as medical, dental, vision, 401k, once they get to that certain size. Is that, I guess, is that what their client is kind of looking for at that point once they get there?
Yeah, I think, employee benefits is an important part of your organizational culture, you know, and how you treat your employees. And it's also a very attractive recruiting carrot, if you will. You know, most people want to have employee benefits, you know, especially, you know, medical benefits. That's very important, regardless of how old you are. The younger people, you know, the 21-year-olds generally don't care. But as you start getting older, you hit 30, you know, your body starts to break a little more often. And, you know, that medical insurance plays a much more important role. So that's something that employees or candidates are looking for. And, you know, as businesses grow, they tend to scale outwards, and you're going to have some of the white collar folks rather than just all blue collar. And the white collar folks definitely want to see employee benefits and some type of retirement plan. Out here in California, it's mandatory to have a 401k, like we have CalSavers. But you know, what happens out here in California will spread to the rest of the country. It's just a matter of time. So, you know, that 401k is going to become much more important to people as time goes on.
Yeah, that makes sense. And again, helping with that retention area. So I guess the client is seeing that they've got to start doing that to keep people. They're just going to continually just turn over.
Yeah.
Because of like you mentioned, the age of the worker and, you know, what they're doing on a daily basis. It's hard to keep folks in that, you know, mindset, I guess. And then are there any other regulations that you know that are coming about with payroll or HR practices in general? Is it more just state and federal government?
It's more on the state side. You know, more states are adopting mandatory sexual harassment training, like California does. I mean, California started that several years ago, and now there's many states across the nation that are mandating that. And we have a technology platform. It's a learning management system that has more than 300 different training topics, including those state compliance trainings that I referenced earlier, as well as OSHA training and leadership, supervisory training, workplace violence training, you name it. It's in there.
In terms of marketing to the different sectors, I mean, to kind of giving agents any tips about, you know, if their state now is about to start, you know, getting, you know, new cannabis operations coming in, like where could they go to access that? If you get it from like Zoom info and the basic services, and like, you know, and then what would you recommend on the reach out? You know, is it just picking up the phone, visiting? Like, what any tips you can give, because you're selling to these companies?
Yeah, so you can reach out to your state licensing board. All that information is public, so you can buy a list. I'm sure that, like in California, that you can buy them, and it'll have all the pertinent information. You know, usually have an email address and a phone number on there, so you can start calling. And I would recommend getting in early, because there's going to be, you know, a lot of activity with this industry.
And you were in California, so you saw everything happen, you know, as the pioneer stage of the industry. So what I'm hearing now is that the margins are getting squeezed very, very hot because of taxes. There's more players coming in now. There's even publicly traded companies that are part of the game. So are you seeing a lot of consolidation, a lot of, you know, businesses going under in retail and wholesale, what have you? Like, what are you seeing at the moment? Because you're the forebearer, you know, of what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think California made a huge mistake by issuing, you know, basically unlimited amounts of licenses. They should have capped it and made it incremental rather than, you know, a free for all. You know, a lot of these folks, you know, these entrepreneurs were kind of like 49ers. They saw, you know, that this could be a potential gold mine and invested their hard-earned money, and it didn't turn out so well. You know, out here in California, we have a very confiscatory tax policy here. So, you know, you think about all the taxes involved, you know, from income tax to payroll taxes, and then you can't write off the 280E taxes, you know, your normal labor expenses, and then tack on another 15% in state, basically a sin tax. That there's not a lot left, if there's anything left. So that's been one of the biggest challenges for cannabis operators out here in California. And I don't think that situation is unique. There are several other states that have done the same thing, and unfortunately, there's been a lot of businesses go out of business, and then there's been a lot of consolidation, as you mentioned, and the M&A activity is pretty good right now. There's a gentleman on LinkedIn who writes quite a bit about this, and his name is Seth Yakatan. It's Yakatan. He has incredible foresight into the industry, and he's been in it a long time, and he's taken, I think, about 20 businesses public and raised several $billion. So I think he knows what he's talking about, and I've actually learned a lot from his articles that he's written.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that, other than that, one resource, anything else you could advise agents to get, again, the ones that, especially they're in states that, cannabis is coming, and it will be legal, to kind of brush up on their knowledge of the industry, any other resources other than just going to Google?
Yeah, I think MJ Biz Daily, that's another good publication. I would probably lean on that one the most.
What was that? Spell that one.
MJ, like Mary Jane, BIZ daily.com.
Gotcha. And I assume that you're seeing consolidation too, that you got to be really big to be able to have that revenue to absorb the cost of the tax piece, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen a lot of consolidation over the last probably 18 months. Larger organizations buying assets from other large organizations or acquiring businesses altogether.
And I've also heard that because of the high taxes, it's causing so much strain on the cannabis business owners, that people are just starting to turn to black market again. It's almost having the opposite effect of what it was supposed to do, is get everything, organized in a nice, neat box and process, and make it, so people don't get, hurt using the wrong type of product or what have you. And now it's just gone the other way because of the cost, and that that there's demand, that they want a lower priced product, but the cannabis, industry can't support it because they've got so much in taxes they got to cover to be legitimate,
Well, does it make sense if you're a consumer, if you can buy your product, whatever it is, at a dispensary, at your local dispensary, and it's $20 for your widget, or if you can go down the street to, the local corner boy and get it for $10, what are you going to do? I mean, it only makes sense to me that California has a tremendous black market problem here. And I attribute it largely to the confiscatory tax policy that's levied against cannabis operators. It's completely unfair. And then, you take into consideration all the taxes, and then throw in all the banking fees that these businesses must pay just to park their money, so that they can push it back out. It's unfair. It's very unfair. They're not being treated well at all.
And I think federal regulations will come down soon about to get parity back to banking and other things, and maybe even address some of these tax issues, or is it just so taboo still in most states?
Eric, I think as the industry has evolved, and so has people's opinion of cannabis, and I think people are softening their stances on cannabis legalization, and I think it'll probably happen at a federal level in the next couple of years. Who knows? And I think there's an appetite for both parties to do this.
And I haven't been to New York since the pandemic, but I've heard since they made it legal, I think they're letting people just smoke it on the street very randomly. It's like it's a big cloud of smoke there. It's just obnoxious to people. Like what are the other states doing? Does California let you just smoke on the street?
I don't know. It's not legal. Go to Vegas. It's like that there too. I think that's one of the challenges that states need to address, and if they're actually going to enforce the laws on the books about that. And again, it comes down to manpower at that point. And, how far do you want to take that? Because someone's smoking a joint, are you going to take that person to jail, or are you going to go chase a bank robber? Pick your battle, I guess.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Anything else on the horizon you're seeing as an issue, or anything you can do to help the agent community understand more about operating in this space and going after this niche?
Yeah, I would welcome anybody who wants to learn more about it. I'm happy to share my knowledge. I've been doing this for 7 years, and out of my book of business, cannabis represents probably 70% of it, as opposed to more of the traditional industry that we also are engaged in. So happy to share my knowledge.
No, that's great. And then also on, I've seen more carriers get into the commercial package side of the business now as well, which could be, especially if, let's say, for a growing operation or manufacturing sort of operation, could be, very lucrative, along with work comp / HR services to be offered as well. So, packaging it up is going to be another good idea, and just,
Sure.
rounding out the account, which most agents want to do anyway, is going to be really helpful, in this area also.
Yeah, I would say EPLI is very important in the cannabis industry as well.
I didn't think about that. Yes.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that Wild West of working in a gym, has those kind of issues too, and restaurants.
Yeah, EPLI is very important. Provide that coverage, and I keep on going back to the newer companies or the startups. They don't know what they don't know, and if you explain it correctly, and give them that vision, that it's not if, it's a matter of when. So I think there's an incredible opportunity to write that line of insurance for everyone on board here today.
Right. And so again, if you're an agent more or less trying to target the niche as it comes to your state, so if I can summarize it for a second, you kind of correct me, where I'm wrong. I'm trying to look at it from a new agent, head, but you've got a couple of things. One, you want to get the list from the state board if you can, state licensing board. Obviously, you can purchase them, through Xyway, probably that's available. But I'm assuming state licensing would be your newer operations, and you would, get that information. I'm sure other agents are doing the same. So you'll be competing quite a bit, but it is what it is. And then when you approach them after you maybe studied up on some of the resources you mentioned, in this meeting, you can then go after the work comp. You could offer it. I'm assuming there's other just traditional carriers now just writing work comp for cannabis. If you want to go that angle, or the angle that you offer, which is more combining payroll and the workers' comp on a pay-as-you-go basis, either under that co-employment model or under, a traditional payroll servicing and work comp model as well. Can you write the work comp under the ASO model too, did you say?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right, cool. So that could be the client's own policy, the payroll's under the client's ID numbers, pretty much what an agent would sell normally, but adding payroll with it. And the technology that can come with that payroll to help the client, get more sophisticated in that way. And then once they grow even further, then especially if you're already attached yourself to someone like, your service with Greenleaf, you can then start layering in the 401k, the employee benefits, and EPLI, all the different programs that would come along with, your full service model. And then from there, start layering in the other package lines of the GL auto, if they have any kind of automobile exposure with delivery, property and so on, umbrella, right? So is that kind of the big picture, if you're an agent, of sort of how to locate, educate, and then what products that are available, and the best practices for an agent just getting started?
Well, I think you described it perfectly. The beauty of my company, and I don't know about any others, is that we can carve out lines of insurance. So if you're a broker and you want to retain the benefit package for your client, you can do that. That's fine. If you're having trouble with workers' comp and you want to push that over to us, fantastic. You keep whatever that you want to keep, or turn it all over to us, and then we'll participate with you in under our channel partner revenue program. Or if you just see value in our services, keep all your lines and retain those for your client, and then we'll still engage you through our revenue sharing program, and then we'll take care of your client either on a payroll only or an ASO or a PEO service solution.
Absolutely. Then the other thing I like, with the bundled product, with the PEO especially, is that what I tell agents, someone like yourself will handle all the complexity of describing the payroll and HR pieces, because most agents aren't, in that world daily with that. They understand it, but they're more inclined to know insurance. So that, someone like you takes over, it's going to, take over in a way that understands that that's the agent's client, but that you're going to be able to handle the hard objections and questions, from that client. And so don't just shy away from the payroll HR discussion just because, you think you don't really know it. You don't want to answer those questions. That could be taken care of. But once the client's on board, the service now really turns over to you and your Greenleaf's operation, in this example, because, you're going to handle the certificates, the claim administration, the risk side, the HR side. Everything's bundled into 5 or so vendors into one. So the client can make one phone call now versus 4 or 5 phone calls to get things done. So you're handling that. The retention's higher, like 90+% versus just traditional work comp or traditional insurance, because the client's just, it's hard to undo the package, and that can be good or bad. In this scenario, it's good because there's a high retention. It's easier. And the clients will usually if they do leave, they're just going to jump to another firm that's similar, like another PEO, that can do the similar things. And the commissions are higher. So it's less work, it's more retention, more money, and with a little more knowledge of how to tee it up to get you involved on that presentation. And we got to do it a little early, within 20, 30 days prior versus the day before renewal,
I laugh because I've experienced that before.
Yeah, and that's our industry. I mean, the carriers have trained us that they're not going to release that renewal quote or a quote, until days or weeks before, unless you just, yell at them to get it.
The beauty of our service models, it really makes sense from a client's perspective, because we're managing all the noise, and then they can focus on running their business and growing their business, and focus on those strategic goals of their organization, and let us worry more about the tactical stuff. Rather than managing relationships with not only your payroll provider, your comp broker, your benefit broker, your 401k broker, your labor attorney, and the list goes on and on and on. Let us manage all that under one roof. And, again, then the client can focus on running their business. And that's what they're there for.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, anything else you could think of that we hadn't covered?
How much time do we have? I mean, gosh, there's so many complexities in the cannabis industry. I mean, we could talk, about banking for hours, and how hard it is, how hard it's been for these clients. We have my company has strong relationships with cannabis banks. So if anybody needs some help with that, please reach out to me, because I'll be glad to share that knowledge. And some of the operational legal considerations that I've learned over the years from clients, I'm a wealth of knowledge, and I'm happy to share.
Absolutely. And, at Insurance Solutions, we're happy to help manage the submission. Again, unless the agent's just doing a ton of cannabis, I would say come through us. If you do If you're specializing, that's your niche, then, get to know Greg personally. But if you're just going to do a little bit of it, definitely send through us at Insurance Solutions. My cell number is 770-402-5343. And you can send a submission to info@insurancesolutions.net. And then, Greg, how do people, if they have questions about general questions about cannabis and things of that nature, what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, you can reach out to me personally. My cell phone is area code 661-332-3898. Or you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm on there, and then we can start a conversation and connect over Teams or a Zoom call after that.
Perfect. Well, Greg, I really appreciate the time. I'm glad you came on. This should be pretty exciting in the next, couple of years with all the new states coming on. I think agents that are going to focus on this niche are going to have some pretty good opportunities as it starts, to take off in the other states, especially, and kind of be a leader. So I'm glad you came on and kind of got us up to date on, in a general way, at least for this kind of format to, help agents.
Yeah, Eric, appreciate the opportunity to be on your show with you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, a shameless promotion. I just wrote a new book. It's called The Blueprint, an insurance agency's unconventional rise to the top. It'll be published on Amazon soon, so I'll let everybody know when it's ready, but pretty excited about it. Kind of goes through the journey of how I had created and built insurance solutions and some of the ideas I use. I think it'll be a good blueprint for agents, as they run their agencies or create new ones. So just another little shameless piece there. So, but hey, look forward to seeing you soon in Phoenix for a meeting. I know we'll both be attending, and I'll bring in one of the Insurance Shop Talk hats out there. Actually, I forgot I was going to see you.
Yep, fantastic. Sounds good. Let's see.
And tell Brad and everybody over there hello. I appreciate it.
Will do. Sounds good.
Thanks again for tuning in to Insurance Shop Talk. If you enjoyed our deep dive into the latest trends, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Until next time, I'm Eric Stein, and this has been Insurance Shop Talk.